In this episode, we will talk about the navigation. So, first of all, we have to understand these three axes that we can see on the screen. One is blue, another one is green, and the last one is red. They are representing the three dimensions that we have in this space. So the blue one is the vertical dimension, most of the times represented by the letter Z. And then we have these two ones, the green and the red, for representing the horizontal dimension. The letter for the green one is the letter Y, and the letter for the red one is the letter X. So, as you can imagine, these axes will be all the time our references for don't be lost when we are orbiting, for example, because at the end it is like if we are astronauts in the space, and then we have to be patient in order to be able to, let's say, control our movements or the movements of the camera, as you prefer, in a very accurate way. I would like to add as well that every axis continue after the origin, which is this point I am marking right now with mouse. So these lines, these axes continue with a dot line, which represent the negative part of that dimension. Furthermore, if we look farther, we will see the line of the horizon. Above that line, we have the sky in a blue color right now, and below that horizon we have this gray color. All of the canvas at the end is representing an sphere, and at this very moment we don't have color for the plane of the ground. Right now that plane is completely transparent, so we can see that semi-sphere below the horizon in that gray color, or we can see that another semi-sphere above that horizon line in that blue color. In the next episode, we will talk about the templates, and in a very rapid way, I will teach you how to change those colors in case that you don't want it. But continue with this lesson in where we are focused on the navigation, we have to pay attention to this group of buttons we have here, in where we can find this first option called orbit, which actually I am already using it without clicking on here, because I am clicking and hold the wheel of my mouse. Then I click, I hold, and I move. For understanding better these movements of the camera, I will draw a cube, and once we have this cube as a reference, if I click and hold the wheel of my mouse and I move my mouse to the left, what is happening is that we are actually looking at the right side from my point of view of this cube, right? So if I move now the mouse to the right side, the other side of this cube is visible. Besides, if I move the mouse now to the top, as you can imagine, what is visible now is the ground floor of this cube, so the opposite all the time. And if I move my mouse down, then I am watching at the top of the cube. So I recommend you to draw this cube. It is very easy. Just use the rectangle and use the extrusion, push and pull, and be very conscious about how this orbit tool works in SKETCHUP. This will help you a lot for the next lesson. A part of this orbit tool, which is very important, we have this pan tool. The shortcut for this pan tool is the letter H in your laptop. And then what I'm doing is not rotate the camera as I was doing before, but moving the camera vertically or horizontally, but I am keeping more or less the angle of the camera. Next option is the zoom. Using the wheel of my mouse, I can scroll in or scroll out. But if I wanted to be more precise, then I could use these two tools. The first one, called zoom, one is click. If I use the left button of my mouse, I click and hold and I move the mouse, I will get closer, but in a very soft way. Softer than if I am using the scroll of the mouse. So sometimes can be useful. Next option, zoom window. will allow us to create a window, clicking and holding, and then I will zoom the content inside that window. When I release, then I have zoomed that specific area. I will do it again with this woman. I create this window around her, and when I release, then you can see that we have zoomed the woman at her maximum size in our screen. Next option for a good navigation is this button called Zoom Extends. This is a very useful button in my opinion, because it will help us a lot to recover our, let's say, perspective of the drawing when we are quite lost. For example, imagine that we are here now, maybe too close, and we want that perspective in where we can see everything. So we can click on here, and then the camera will capture the complete drawing at its maximum size. That is very, very nice because, for example, if I have another object, let's say a line here, and we were just pointing this woman, and I use again this zoom extends, what the camera is gonna do is to capture all the drawing at its maximum size, as I told you, right? So you can see here how our drawing now is not that big because the camera has to go farther in order to get that line which was hidden under this default tray, but it is there. So many times, if you click on the zoom extend and you realize that the camera goes so far, it is saying to you that something it is drawn and maybe you can't see it. Anyways, I will erase this element and let's jump to the next option, which is called previews. This previews is kind of undo, but just related with the movements of the camera. So we will go one step back in our camera history. I click on it and you can see that our previous step was here pointing this woman. Finally, it is important to point out here in this episode that we have this toolbar which is called views. I will put it here now, which is gonna be super helpful for navigation. I mean, we don't have to all the time try to place the camera manually using these tools that we have just learned, like orbit or pan or zoom extends. We have these automatic positions of the camera right here in this toolbar, and the first one is the isometric view of the model. If I click on here, then we have this isometric view. As always, we will have to keep in mind the position of the axis. Then we have this another option called top, in where we will be able to watch our model from the top. One click and here we are. Then we have front, right, back and left. For example, if we start clicking on front, you can see how the camera moves exactly to this position. And again, pay attention to the axis in order to know where exactly are you. If I go to right, then the movement of the camera has been towards the right side, then back, we continue moving to the right, and then left. So this is gonna be super helpful, as I told you. And finally, we have this another option, which is just select one face of the object, right button, and then we have this option called Align View. If I click here, then the camera is gonna be aligned with that face, following that orthogonal line. To finish with the navigation, I would like to mention another tools that we can find if we move over camera. Here we will find these two options, parallel projection and perspective. When we are navigating, it is very interesting and useful to switch between these two options. Normally we will be working on perspective, but if I select parallel projection, you will see that everything is like if we are working in a dihedral system. So if I use, for example, this top view, all the measures will be real. I mean that it is like if we are doing a plan floor. Here we don't have perspective at all. All the lines are parallel between each other. So this could be very interesting for generating As I said, plan floors or elevations, for example, if I move to this front view, etc, etc. If I go again over camera, we will find here a third option called 2-point perspective, but this option, let's say that is not that important for the navigation, and we will see it in a more advanced stage of the course. Good, we will finish the class here. We will talk more about navigation. This is just the beginning, and of course, practice will make you more and more better, and at some point you will not have to think. It's like driving a car, and the movements of your fingers and your mouse will be super accurate even without thinking. Time to jump to the next episode in where we are gonna learn how to use the selection tools.